Thank you very much, Dean. It is always, for me, a very moving experience to come back to this campus. I was 17 when I first came here as a student, and my whole life was remade by Howard University. I was amused today when some people were talking about the early days of the Moorland-Spingarn Research Center, and one might have thought that those were senior people who had been put in charge of the center. I had just weeks before turned 32, and a substantial part of that superb staff that was assembled, they were younger than the director. But what we lacked in experience, we tried to compensate for in energy, enthusiasm, and an eagerness to make that center what it was intended to be. Now, I had, as everyone has had today, a struggle about what to say, given the circumstances, and for me particularly, I am sensitive to the fact that this has been a long day. You've heard very good speakers, but it's been a long day, and I do not want to hold you unnecessarily. So I'm going to be as brief as I can be, and then I would really like to have some interchange and discussion afterward, because I think that might be the most productive thing. So the first thing I must say is that this will not be an address as listed. A devoted member of this community said to me some days ago, "I look forward to your oration." I said, I will not make an oration. Howard University is not in need of another speech. What do I propose? The following remarks are intended to provide some context for discussion. I will state what I think are necessary facts and truths. They are not, however, the Analects of Winston. All are either debatable propositions or conclusions that I have come to after serious study and reflection. They are not casually made. So one could start off by citing what I might call first principles. When I was still teaching at the university, I used to counsel students that successful living required mastery of three fundamental questions. Who am I? Where am I? What time is it? The same questions may be addressed to an institution. What is Howard's identity as an institution? Many would answer very quickly that it is black, that it is an HBCU. Is that an exhaustive or adequate identification? So let me state first, Howard is a university. It is one of the oldest universities in the United States that was founded as a university. Harvard was founded as a college and grew into a university. Princeton was the College of New Jersey until 1896, when it was renamed. But to this day, it is not a comprehensive university, lacking a medical school and a law school and other professional schools, though its per capita income is the richest institution in the country. Columbia College did not become a university until the 1890s, when it merged with an existing law school and an existing medical school, and became Columbia University in the city of New York, as it's formally called. Of those institutions founded as universities, I would point out that Stanford and the University of Chicago were founded in the 1890s. The College of Dentistry at Howard is the 5th oldest dental school in the United States, and in the late 1950s was rated as one of the top dental schools in the world. black though it was. These are not historical factoids. They indicate that the founders of Howard University had a distinct concept in mind, taking what was then considered the outrageous step of founding a full-fledged university with a liberal arts college, a medical school, a law school, and a divinity school all at once. As recently as 10 days ago, I heard a trustee of Howard in a public statement call Howard a college. It is and always has been a university. Why is this relevant or important? Because it means that any discussion of the future must be in the context of universities, not colleges, not HBCUs as a group, since most are colleges, or black organizations, none of which is a university. And the chairman of the board of this institution told me about Howard as a black organization. General Howard and his associates did not establish a university because they had a vague notion that it would be a nice thing to do. They realized with far-sighted realism that those who had fought to preserve slavery would regain strength and would use their resources to reverse whatever gains could be achieved by the freedmen during Reconstruction. They understood power and knew that political participation and advantage without knowledge cannot be sustained. This institution was intended to make emancipation a reality. As Dr. Locke was to say in connection with his labors here, intellect is the source of all other emancipations. As Chaim Weizmann understood, universities are the foundation of power. He was, of course, the first president of Israel in 1948. But his concept was clear when he went up to Mount Scopus in the summer of 1918, 30 years earlier, and laid the cornerstone for the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Prior to political and economic power, one must have intellectual power. All talk of black power without reference to intellect is fatuous posturing. So principle one is Howard is a university. Principle two is that we cannot grasp Howard solely self-referentially, limited to our personal experience of the institution or what we know of its recent history. I pose the question, perhaps the most serious one of my entire set of remarks. What can anyone know of Howard who only Howard knows? Only by comparison can its strengths and weaknesses be discerned clearly. And we have a tendency to accept or even make into a virtue our intermittent isolation. E. Franklin Frazier used to say in 116 Douglas Hall that the most effective tactic of white domination was what he called, quote, the mental isolation of the Negro. One may understand Howard's values from a variety of angles. One that is often overlooked is its place in higher education in terms of gender, for example. Just as it was radical to think of former slaves becoming university trustees, professors, deans, physicians, and lawyers immediately, which is what they did, not in some far distant future generations away, it was radical to admit women from the beginning, for them to study side by side with men in all fields and to be professors here. The Howard Medical School was listed as, quote, an unethical medical school, close quote, because a white woman, Isabella C. Barrows, was appointed professor of ophthalmology in 1871 and barred from membership in the Association of Medical Colleges because men and women were taught in the same classes, including anatomy. It is well known that the Ivy League institutions did not admit women as undergraduates until the late 1960s and early 1970s. Howard admitted women not only as undergraduates, but also in the medical and law schools. Because it was an interracial, not a black institution, the vanguard of white women physicians in this area were Howard graduates, as were the white women lawyers.